And welcome back to a fresh episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Sam Dunning, co-owner over at webchoiceuk.com. And today I'm joined by Mor Assouline. Mor is a 3-time sales leader and a 2 times VP of sales. He advises B2B software as a service companies, and he's recently released a sales demo course called From Demo to Close. Mor, a warm welcome to the show, sir. How you doing?
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good. You?
All well. All is well on this end, man. I was just saying how nice and cold it is in UK, and I know you're sitting outside right now on your balcony. For those that are listening in and can't see, and you're enjoying the sunshine, so very envious right now on a cold winter's day here in the UK.
Yeah, it's our winter also, kind of. We have cold fronts.
Yeah,
most of the time it's hot.
Decent, living the dream, man. So we're going to be talking all about how you can close a whopping 50% or more of your sales demos. I'm intrigued because I want to steal some of the tactics today, and I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers do as well, More. So let's throw you in at the deep end as we always do. Is it really possible? It sounds like a bit of a pipe dream. Is it really possible to close 50% or more of sales demos?
Short answer is yeah. I've done it myself, and I've gotten my team to do it, and everybody that I essentially trained. Right, I would join in early stage startups, build out a team from scratch, train them, and then one of the things I do is I measure the performance. And so my benchmark is 50%. If I can get them above, amazing. A lot of times I do, but on average, 50% is the minimum benchmark.
Man, that's some real stats. That's some amazing stats. So is that something that just happens, or for anyone that's listening in, is that something you need to aspire to, i.e. you might be at something like 20%, 25%, 30% right now, and it's something that gradually happens? Or is the process we're going to discuss today something that you can put into play this framework, and then it's going to be 50%, no questions asked?
No, it doesn't just happen. I think for some industries and some companies, 20% is considered good. I don't like, from at least my experience, 20% is extremely bad. But I've talked to other companies where they're doing 20%, and I would ask them, like, hey, what's industry average? And they'll say 30%.
Right.
So 30% is considered good in their industry, but on, if you're dealing with SMB or enterprise level deals, it could, the numbers can tend to fluctuate. Enterprise takes a lot longer to close a deal. SMB is a lot quicker than an enterprise, and so you can probably see a higher demo conversion rate typically.
Yeah, I get that. And is this, on that note, before we get into, I guess, some of the tactics and talk about this in a bit more depth, is this across the board? So is this anywhere from kind of a SaaS product where or doesn't even have to be SaaS, but let's say we sell a monthly service that might be anywhere from, I don't know, a few £100 or dollars a month up to, I don't know, 10K plus a month. Is it across the board, or is it limited to a certain kind of bracket, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, from at least my experience, or like my playground is SaaS, and so I can only claim that number from my experience.
Sure.
I'm sure there are things, tactics, strategies that you can use from a sales demo on a SaaS platform or SaaS product and have it transferable to a non-SaaS play, right? Like, I release my sales program, I charge a yearly subscription. I don't necessarily do demos. It's sort of my content, whatever marketing strategies I have that gets people interested and they buy. There's a difference if you're on the phone and actually doing a presentation of something. That's a whole other animal.
Got it. Okay, that's fair. So before we get into this, how much weighting, in your opinion, is placed on the sales demonstration, the presentation, your Zoom classic screen share, going through the slides, on that part of the sales process, as opposed to, let's say, things like the actual lead quality itself? So if you generated the lead yourself as a sales rep or a business owner, or a marketing's passed it on to you, or moving forward through the discovery stage, another start of the sales process, or let's say the closing stage, and then in between we've perhaps got the demo. How much is that of the weighting of getting the deal over the line is would you say is on the actual demo itself?
Yeah, I mean, if I throw out a number, it'll be too arbitrary, but I don't think it's one. It's like, oh, it's the demo, it's the Zoom meeting, the way you do it. It's a little bit of everything, sort of a little bit and a lot of bit of everything, right? Like, discovery is definitely an anchor If you don't do discovery properly, you can dramatically affect negatively your demo conversion rate, your win rates, the quality of the lead. Also, like you can get a shitty quality lead that has zero interest in purchasing, zero, like none whatsoever, and they were just forced on a call. You're not going to close them. Like they're just not. Their intent isn't to buy. They're not even paying attention. So yeah, you have those factors. Luck has a lot to play with it also, right? But as far as what you can control, there's a lot of things that you can control. The discovery part, your tonality, the questions you ask, what you show, how much time you spend on it. What part of the demo are you spending more time on? How you talk about the pricing, all these things go into play. It's sort of like a cocktail of different skill sets.
I like that. And I love cocktails, so that works well.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to talk too much about discovery because that makes sense. If marketing pass you a shitty lead, then it's your responsibility as a business owner, as a sales rep, to understand that it's poor quality. Try and put them through your sales process. If they're a poor fit, then disqualify. Continue nurturing them, whatever makes sense for your organization. And if you want to learn more about discovery, we've got two episodes with Benjamin Dennehy. One of the most is why you don't need to do a demo, and the second is how to close inbound leads. So check those out with the UK's most hated sales trainer, Benjamin Dennehy. Now, moving forward.
I love him.
Great guy. Very controversial. That's probably why we get on quite well, but he's a no BS sales trainer.
His cold call openings are golden. He gets it from Sandler, but
yeah. I think a lot of people know that a lot of the stuff is Sandler with his own spin on it.
Yeah. And I think most sales advice out there, even mine, is something that we've extracted from some other source that we read or learned, and we put our own spin on it. Right, like Bruce Lee. If you're a fan of Bruce Lee, like he created his martial arts called Jeet Kune Do, and Jeet Kune Do was just sort of a mashup of kung fu, karate, this, that, aikido, and he called it Jeet Kune Do. So I called mine from demo to close.
Well, that's it, right? Like, most of my own, without going off on too much of a rabbit hole, most of my own sales processes and things I've either stolen from books, podcasts, or guests that we've had on the show, and put my own spin on it, made it my own, tested what works, what doesn't, go from there.
Yeah.
So, cool, man. So with that said, Mor, the big question, the hot seat, what goes into a winning sales demo? What do we need to consider? What do we need to put in play if we want to start closing 50% of our demo deals?
Yeah. So you said like discovery is something that you talked about in the past. Discovery isn't just like a part of like the call opening, right? It's not like it depends, right? Like are you getting the lead from cold prospecting, or are you getting the lead from an inbound top funnel marketing where they requested a demo on your website, or they came in from a referral, whatever it is, right? So either way, wherever they're coming from, you should, the discovery part is the most important part of the entire demo process. I said it yesterday to somebody, I'm like, the discovery is the spinal cord of the demo. Right?
That's a nice analogy. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I didn't steal that from anyone. That one was on me. But, it's a spinal cord of the demo, which means the discovery isn't a stage that starts and ends before the demo starts. It's a thing that just constantly goes throughout the sales process, during the demo, after the demo, after onboarding, etc. So discovery is major. Part one of like getting really good at doing demos is getting really good at discovery. And for a few reasons. Number one, during the discovery part, you're collecting a shit ton of intel, at least in the beginning. And based on that intel that you're collecting, you're able then to leverage the information later on in the demo. So, for example, like if you tell me, like right now I have a cold, right? So, like if you tell me, like, hey, Mor, why did you buy a box of tissues? I'll tell you because I have a cold, and you'll be like, okay, well, tell me more about it, and I'll tell you, and I'll go into it, and you're like, okay, and then you have a box of tissues to sell me, or some other product for colds, right? Like during the demo, you'll say like, hey, Mor, you had mentioned earlier that you have a cold because you didn't wear a sweater when you went outside. Do you think having a sweater on freezing days would be helpful? Like that's a discovery question. I'm like completely like deviating away from like software itself right now, but like you're using discovery and then intel that you learned earlier on the call to talk about it on the demo. If you're talking specifically on a demo, it's like, hey, prospect, what's the reason you're looking at our solution, or what's the reason that you scheduled a call today? They'll say something like, oh, we would like to increase our conversions, whatever it is. And so as you're doing the demo later on and you have a particular feature that helps them increase conversions, you'll say, hey, Sam, you had mentioned earlier on the call that one of the reasons you want to get it on the demo is because you want to increase conversions because you're not doing it with the previous solution. What I'm about to show you actually tackles exactly what you're looking for. And so you lean in and pay attention because I'm using discovery. I'm using what you said on discovery on the demo. So discovery is really important. Tonality is also extremely important. I like to do this experiment a lot when I do like workshops. So let's do it. I'll do it with you actually. I want you to think of say the word tiny to me. Tiny.
Tiny.
Okay. Now I want you to say it again, but before you say it again, I want you to use in your head, imagine what tiny would look like and use your body, your arms, your hands, whatever it is, and then say the word tiny again.
Let's go for it. Tiny.
Right. So if you were to close your eyes and you just heard that, you'd be like, oh, I know it. All right, he said tiny, but the second time you said it, I felt it more. You're like, tiny. Even your words were smaller.
Even did the little expression with my fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I do this, everybody goes like this. When I tell someone to say the word huge, they're like, huge. I'm like, all right, I now say the word huge using your body language. So do it. Say the word huge with your body language.
Huge.
Right? Like so your tone of voice changes, you get animated.
Yeah.
And so tonality is really important because when you want to have a punchline after a feature or you want to do a punchline after price, whatever it is, tonality plays a big role. So if I want to tell them about a feature that is exactly what they're looking for, let's say I want to use the words, this is exactly what you're looking for. If I'm using tonality, I'll say, hey, Sam, you had mentioned that you want to increase conversions. What I'm about to show you is exactly what you're looking for. And so you pay attention because of the tone of voice. So that's another thing that's really helpful on demos.
Let's dive into those 2 points before we crack on. So yeah, discovery. Essentially, what you're saying is it should be from the start and ongoing throughout your demo. Asking questions.
It never ends.
Relating back to them as and when relevant, I guess, with the software or whatever you're demonstrating to your prospect. Reeling that back into the detail you've dove into with the questions you've asked. So tonality, that's an interesting one. Not something we've talked about a great deal on the show, which is interesting. So it's again, I'm curious. How important is this from what you've seen more and some of the reps you've trained, or perhaps your own experience? How much does it really affect? I guess the buyer's ability to trust you and ultimately go ahead with you.
Well, I mean, if you're using a software like Gong.io or Refract or whatever it is, there's no metric that measures tonality. There's metrics that measure question asking, and there's metrics within Gong that measures how many words you're using and what type of words, etc. But there's nothing about tonality. So for me to say, oh yeah, it affects the demo by 20%, like that's so arbitrary.
Yeah, exactly.
I just know when I listen to demos and the person is monotone, I zone out. Because if you're monotone, there's nothing differentiating what you said from the beginning of what you said versus at the end. Just like the word tiny or exactly or huge or whatever it is. When people and this is like classic old school salespeople, like when you want to tell somebody that they're getting a sick deal, you lower your voice. You're like, by the way, I want to let you know that if you sign up to, like, these are little tactics that worked back in the day, right? I think nowadays people can smell that type of tactic. So just be animated when you talk.
Interesting. You mentioned Sandler earlier because I'm pretty sure he had a saying that sales is like a Broadway show put on by actors. I've probably butchered the saying, but it was something along those lines. It's literally in the book. How you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. Now that's interesting. And Benjamin, when he's been on the show, has kind of talked about certain bits and pieces like that. So yeah, I get what you're saying. So essentially, if you're monotone, if you're just speaking in the same tone of voice, it's probably going to send your prospects to sleep.
Yeah, it's like, hey, prospect, you mentioned that you had a feature, you had a reason that you wanted to sign up, and this is exactly what you're looking for. Let me show you. And so this is what it's like, like where's the highs and lows? Like some songs are really good and really catchy because they use it, like the Beatles, for example. I don't know whoever listens to the Beatles, but like other musicians, Coldplay, whatever it is, they all have, really good songs aren't like static and linear. They're sort of, they're fluctuating. They spin off a little bit. It's rhythm, right? That's why we like music. It's rhythm. It's catchy. And so if sales demos is just like music, you have a rhythm in your tone of voice. You have a rhythm in the words that you use, how fast you're saying the words, how slow you're saying the words. If you watch like The Wolf of Wall Street, like I know everybody, like there's a lot of people that don't like him because he stole money, fine, whatever. But there is truth to what he's saying about tone of voice. If you watch like Leonardo DiCaprio, He's like, what I'm about to show you is the best thing. Whatever, he uses this whole body language.
Yeah.
You feel it across the phone. It's convincing.
Yeah. Yeah. You do that. Let's put a spanner in the works as an opposition to that note. What about if the prospect on the other end of the Zoom call, the meeting, whatever, is very monotone? So if they're the kind of person that comes across just quite steady, perhaps quite meek, quite quiet, and then you're super active, super hyper, super enthusiastic, would that not scare them off? I know traditional sales training says you should perhaps consider mirroring your prospect.
Mirroring and
what are your
matching.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think you got to feel them out. Like, I'll try to break the ice with the prospect. So part of breaking the ice is doing research before the demo. If you can find out their interests, like personal interests, like maybe go on Instagram or Facebook and see what they like, what they, that's one area. Go to LinkedIn, see their activity. What do they engage in? What do they comment? Find anything that you can about them. Intel, like literally intel. This way, if you find that they love, I don't know, whiskey, right, and they're talking monotone, you could say something like, "Oh, by the way, like this is gonna sound really stalkerish, but I always do research on my prospects before a demo, and I did it on you, and I noticed that you have a huge whiskey collection. Like, use that, and that can break the ice a little bit. And so they may open up if they talk about whiskey in a monotone way, but it's still a passion of theirs. Then I'd consider to just match them. But some people, by the way, like I've met developers that are really monotone. They're not enthusiastic. They're not, super animated, and they love being around people that are like that because it's something they sort of admire. And some of them don't. Some of them like, hey, you're too much. I'm not saying be like overly excited, on a call. Enthusiasm could be in different ways. You can be passionate about something, but you don't have to yell about it, right?
Got it. Makes sense. So, with those two things in mind, what's kind of next on the process of your ideal sales demo?
Yeah. So we said discovery, tonality, tailoring is really important. So, like, where did you buy your last suit?
Where did I?
Yeah.
Let's have a think. I haven't bought one recently. We got married a couple months back, so that was rented from a company I believe called Suits Direct, but we had to rent mine and then all the groomsmen and all the guys involved.
Right.
And then before that, it was probably a cheap one. Actually, it was like £100 suit from Next, but I got that about 6 years ago. So
it was off the rack, right?
Yeah, I think I had to get measured up for both of them, but it wasn't like back then I was young, I didn't have much money, so it was like £100 suit job.
Yeah, so I mean, you can either buy a suit off the rack, right? You can go like we have Macy's or Nordstrom's or whatever it is, or you have Suit Supply also, but Suit Supply is not really off the rack. But you can buy it off the rack, and all you got take it to a tailor, and she'll make some adjustments, and you're good to go. Or you can take it to like a company like Indochino or Suit Supply, and get a suit custom made. They measure you from head to toe, and you have a suit made for Mor, a suit made for Sam, a suit made for this person. One's more premium, it costs more. One costs less. And you have, and so treat your demos like not a suit off the rack, but a custom made suit.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes back to discovery. That's why I say it's a spinal cord. Because if you're after you're done discovery, and let's just say you find out that the prospect only has one particular main pain point, like, hey, my pain point is X and my goal is Y, for example. Don't spend time on the demo showing them anything other than X and Y, like. Right, because they're there for one or two things. If you have enough time on the demo and you think that other things that would help them, fine, show it to them. But otherwise, like when you're doing a demo and it's 30 minutes long, 45 minutes long, 60 minutes long, and you're spending time showing them all these features, they're not going to walk away remembering everything you said. It's impossible. Think about the time that you first joined the company and you first learned the product. How long did it take to actually learn the in and outs of the product? Now you're doing a demo with a prospect and you expect them to know as much as you. It's not possible. They're going to extract a very small percentage. So don't overwhelm them. Tailor the demo. Only focus on the things that completely align to what they're trying to accomplish.
I'm really enjoying your analogies more so far.
Shoot off the rack.
I love the comparison and the spinal cord backbone for discovery as well. So yeah, I like that, tailoring it to what I guess to what the prospect actually cares about. So ultimately, these are the problems I've got right now. I don't care about the 100 features that your demo or your software has because I just want to know how it solves my problems, how it makes my life better, right? Rather than listening to a sales rep drone on about the same old features.
Right.
Gotcha. So You mentioned something there in terms of kind of focusing on the pain points. Is there, this might be something else you want to talk about a bit later, but is there a kind of perfect time? Because you mentioned demos can drag on. Is there an ideal time limit for a demos? And appreciate, again, this can be dependent on what you're doing, but have you found people can only focus attention for a certain amount of time without falling asleep?
Yeah, so it's tricky, right? Like if you're doing I always say like if you're doing a 60-minute demo or 30-minute demo or 45-minute demo, and you and the prospect are vibing, right? Like there's just crazy chemistry, and you're talking, and you're bleeding over the time. They don't have to leave. You don't have to leave. I say milk it. Not all the time because
Yeah,
it's a lot of time. Like I did a demo with somebody once. Um, it was a 45-minute blocked off time demo.
right.
We did the demo and we were just like great, like we were talking as if we were best friends. The demo lasted for 3 hours.
Wow. I hope they bought.
They bought, they referred, and they text me from time to time. They followed me on Facebook. They, like they saw I had corona like at the time. They're like, hope you feel better, and we're just in touch. That's what you call a raving fan. And whenever they have a question, like this is sort of like not the greatest thing because now they're on customer success side. They're no longer on the sales side. They reach out to me, right? Because they just trust me more. But if I tell them like, hey man, like I need another customer to sign up with us. Do you know anybody? I can have that type of conversation so freely because I milked the demo with them because we just had a good conversation. Otherwise, no. I mean, like if you do a demo on me, I'm the type of person that I don't care about the weather. I don't care about where you're like not you specifically, like a sales rep is like, oh, where you're from, and they try to build. I don't like that shit. I personally don't like it. I don't care for it. I'm very busy, so show me exactly what I need to see. And so I'm the type of person that keep the demo. If it's 60 minutes, so be it. But make sure that 60 minutes is all about business, less about trying to build rapport with me. So is there a sweet spot for timing? I don't think so. I experimented, right? Like I've done demos that are 30 minutes long, and it was great because you're able to go through the next demo, so you're able to get like 8 demos, 10 demos in a day. The downside to that is you're rushing through the demo a lot of times because the prospect has more questions, you want to show them more things, whatever it is. And so I stretch it for 45 minutes, and then I create a 20, 30-minute buffer time. So if we bleed over, it's fine. But I'm a big fan of giving back time on demos.
Yeah.
Time is the best gift.
So essentially we're saying as long as it needs.
To an extent, right? Like if the prospect has a hard stop, then keep it at a hard stop. If you've covered everything you need to cover, and you have a 60-minute demo and you've done it in 30 minutes, you don't need another 30 minutes. Give them back 30 minutes.
Yeah. I get that. You raised an interesting point there, Mor. So you said, like, for example, you don't care about the small talk, weather, what's going on. I'm quite similar. If I'm talking to a sales rep, I want to get to the point, can they help me or not, ultimately?
Yeah.
Do they understand what I need, and can they get me from A to B? So does that just go back to what we were talking about before, doing a bit of research before your call, or does that come in kind of when you're talking discovery and you might get an idea of what they're like as a person and if they want to do the small talk or not? Have you got any quick tips on that front?
Yeah, like if you should spend time like doing like building rapport and breaking that ice.
Yeah, basically to get a quick, I guess, an idea of what your prospects like and if they actually give a shit about talking about the weather, or if they just want to crack on and get into the nuts and bolts of how you're going to fix their problem with your demo.
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is just like, being just like self-aware. Like when you're on the demo, like you'll get a sense of like, hey, how are you today? And he'll be like, I'm okay. Like he's short, right? Or she's short, or they're like, I'm great. How are you? Like if you're getting that sort of vibe back from the prospect, then you know where you can play around.
Yeah.
But doing the research, the demo prep is so important because you save so much time. The worst thing you can do when you get on a demo, there's a lot of worse things you can do, but one of the worst things you can do is you get on a demo, you tell the prospect, cool, so tell me about your business. Like, did you not do research? Like, what do you do? What's your title at such and such company? Like, that type of stuff you can do research on. And so I've had demos where someone demoed me. They're like, hey, tell me about your business. And so I responded. I gave them the answer, but I wasn't enthusiastic. I was like, short. I was like, yeah, we do this, we do that. Anyways, and I push them off.
Got it.
So if I get on a demo and someone says, hey, Mor, I noticed that I appreciate you jumping on the call today. I noticed that you do X and Y and Z. You're doing it for about 3 years, and then bring up something that you've noticed something else. Like I noticed that you also recently released a podcast with Sam about XYZ. Curious, and then ask a question. That's the way to build rapport. If you're doing your homework and people notice that you've done your homework, they'll be way more open to communicating with you. Again, if you do your own research, right, and you find out on Instagram that they love, or TikTok or Facebook that they love whiskey, they have a crazy collection, bring it up. Like you don't have to bring it up in the beginning of the call. You can bring it up in the middle of the call, or whatever it is, right? So like I knew, for example, I did a demo with somebody, and I found out that that person was actually a celebrity, somewhat of a celebrity. And I was like, okay. And the research that I did, I found out they have like 6 kids.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, okay, this is pre-demo. Okay. So I'm on a demo, and I'm like, okay, they have 6 kids, so they love children. It seems like.
You'd hope.
Yeah, or something like that. So, and I've been working from home. So when I got on the demo, I'm like, hey, I appreciate you jumping on the call. By the way, just want to like throw out a disclaimer. If you hear a baby in the background, pay no attention. That's my son. And I threw that in because I know they have kids. And they're like, oh, how old is he? And then we talked a little bit about that, right? So
nice. Just subtle things.
It's very
based
subtle
on research.
Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense, man. So this might be a later part of your demo tips, but how important is storytelling? Because I know you've shared quite a few stories and some relevant ideas and some good tips so far. How big a part is kind of building a story, whether that's sharing a case study of a similar client or relating something back that might be useful to your prospect? What do you think?
Yeah, storytelling is huge. I mean, think about, like I always talk about this, like children, 2-year-olds, they have no they can't focus on one thing. They're all over the place, right? But for whatever reason, there's a ton of books that are published for children, and children are able to sit and read through it. Like my son is all over the place, but I take a book and I read to him, he pays attention. How's that possible if they're so distracted and, ADD, whatever you want to call it? And so the authors of these books found a way to crack the lack of attention for children. And so they write really good stories, they simplify things. And so if that works for children, even more so it could work for prospects on the demo. And so storytelling is huge. I'll give you an example. I was talking this is like a couple of years ago. I was talking to a prospect, and they were on the fence about switching from the competitor to our solution. And they were like, yeah, I've been using this competitor for 7+ years. Or like I asked them, like, how long have you been using the competitor? Like, 7+ years. And so clearly they were hesitant of like switching over. And so I was like, oh, let me just tell you a story. And so the story I told them was like a true story. I was like, I had my first car lease. And my car lease, my car didn't have a rear view camera. And so I drove for a few months, and I had to take it into the shop to get oil change tires, whatever it is. And so in the meantime, I borrowed my sister's car that had a rear view camera. So when I reversed, I could look at the camera. And so I did that for a couple of days, and it was like a game changer. Like, wow, I can reverse without turning back. When I got my car back and I went to reverse, what do you think I did? And that's like literally a question I asked the prospect. And like, oh, you reverse and you almost hit a car. I'm like, yeah, I almost hit a car because I defaulted to look at the stereo, which is where the camera would typically be. And I was so used to it, and I reversed and I almost hit a car. I'm like, and that's just having my sister's car for 2 days. You have a software for 7 years, and you expect to want to switch over and for it to be exactly the same. So I use the story to make a point. It's a storytelling is huge.
Yeah, it sounds like that also shifts to give them another point of view as well.
100%.
Which I like.
Yeah, and if you're going over features, right, like don't tell them about what the feature is and what it does. Tell them a story about it. Like using discovery. Hey, you mentioned earlier that you're having trouble getting your team to utilize the software because so and so and so. So prospect, imagine this case scenario and then go through a story. Or, hey, prospect, I had another client that had the exact same scenario as you. They had about 5 employees. Create a story. Use a story. You don't necessarily have to show physical use cases. You could just use a use case from your experience.
Nice. Well, we've covered some good ground already. So we've gone over so far kind of discovery. We've gone over tonality. We've gone over thirdly tailoring, kind of thinking about time durations. We talk about storytelling as a 5th point. Are there any other big hitters that we need to consider more before we talk about wrapping things up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, right? But like, I think pricing is an important area. I think a lot of
Sure.
reps are not confident on the pricing side, and because of that, they rush through pricing,
Okay.
and they should spend a lot of time on pricing. um, they try to rush through. They're like, "Hey, this is the plan," da, 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 and then they talk first. I think in pricing, you have to slow it down a lot. You have to feel very comfortable in that area, and you should shut up after you talk about the plan. So, hey Sam, earlier on the call, you mentioned X, Y, Z. Based on what I showed you, you said that this is a fit for you. Da, 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 da. Here are our plans. Don't say anything. I think reps have an issue of awkward silences, or they just try to like control too much. But if silence is a game changer, even after you show a feature, if you're showing a game changer of a feature, stay quiet. So my tip for reps is wait 3 to 6 seconds minimum after switching from one topic within the demo to another. If you're talking about pricing and you've gone over the plans and the pricing, after you've gone over them, wait longer than 3 to 6 seconds. How long? You should wait until the prospect talks first. It's going to be very awkward in the beginning.
Yep. Yep. Easier said than done. I guess it's one of those things you've got to keep working on.
Yep.
Okay. And again, this is some of these questions I appreciate they're going to vary from sector to sector. Now, whereabouts in a demo do you feel pricing should be? Should it be somewhere perhaps towards the end, once you've kind of done your discovery, once you've gone through kind of the relevant features and benefits that attack your prospects' goals, their pain points, etc.? Perhaps you've shared a couple of stories, some case studies. Is then the time for pricing before the end, or should it be brought up right at the start, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I generally default to talking about price at the end of the demo. So after I've shown everything and I've confirmed, this is what is aligned to what they're looking for, then I'll talk about pricing. Then I talk about next steps in onboarding, or onboarding and then next steps. But I've experimented. I've done it where I'll show a prospect a feature and I'll say something like, and by the way, this is on our XYZ plan. And I'll say that throughout the demo. And so I'm sort of priming them. So by the time we get to the plans, they're not like, oh, what the hell? Like I already talked about it. Sometimes I talk about it in the beginning, right? Like if you're doing discovery at the beginning of the demo and you find out that the prospect is using a competitor of yours, but your competitor is the cheapest one on the market, like stupid cheap, like pretty much free, then you know with common sense that if they're going from like a $10 solution per month software to a 300, 400, 500 per month, that price is going to be such an elephant in the room. And so it would be stupid to avoid talking about price until the end. So you can say something like, hey, Sam, I know you mentioned that you're using your competitor, XYZ. I'm familiar with them. They're only about like $10 a month, right? Right. Well, I want to let you know, like, if you look at our pricing, and then I'll pull up the pricing, it's more of a premium plan to the competitor. And I'd shut up. And this is the beginning of the call. I want to know their reaction. If they're like, oh, well, no, we can't. Like, okay, curious. Like, if you found a solution that does exactly what you're looking for, but they are around this price, is that a deal breaker for you? Yes. Okay. Well, then, I don't think that would be a fit. No, it wouldn't be a deal breaker. Okay, then I could continue. But if I know, I mean, like for me, that's an indicator of bringing up price early on. If I know that they're using something that's pretty much free or ridiculously cheap, pricing will be an issue for them. So I want to bring it up early.
Yeah, so it's almost kind of using experience, using common sense, checking out what they're on right now. If you don't know, asking, and then just saying, look, full transparency, our pricing is kind of 3x what you're paying right now, whatever it is. Even if we can tackle your goals, get the job done, do what you're looking for, would you be prepared to invest that much? And if they say no way, then disqualify them out.
Yeah, I mean, I would even before disqualifying them out, I'd say like dig a little deeper, but like, no way. Like, have you considered like how big? Like, you'd want to find out how big their problem is before even talking about price, right? Like, so like, hey, what's the reason you're looking for X? Oh, the reason is XYZ. Okay. Well, what's the impact of that? Or like, tell me more about it. Unravel the onion, or whatever what you call it. Peel back the onion, the layers of the onion. You want to find out the impact of the problem that they're dealing with. Sometimes they have a problem, but it's not that big of a problem. Not enough for them to pay more. And so, one thing everyone talks about, you'll see on LinkedIn, like active listening. Active listening is a sales skill that everybody should have. Sure, that's important. I call bullshit. And the reason why I think there's proactive listening is way more impactful. So proactive listening is like reading in between the lines. So for example, let's do an experiment. Ask me how my day was.
How was your day, sir?
It's okay. What sentiment am I giving off? Like, what's my vibe?
Sounds like you don't want to talk about it that much.
Right. It doesn't sound like it was a great. Right? That's you proactively listening. You're reading in between the lines. You're paying attention to my tone of voice. I said the word okay. I didn't say great. I didn't say good. I didn't say fantastic. I said okay. So that's proactive listening. So you know that this person had a tough day, right? So an example of how you can use this on a demo or on discovery/demo, because I like to do again, discovery is the spinal cord.
Sure.
If you ask the prospect, what's the reason you're looking to leave the competitor? And the prospect says, the reason we're looking to leave the competitor is every time we reach out to customer support, they give us the runaround. They wait 3 days to give us a response. It's nuts. We can't handle it anymore. So an active listener will say, this person clearly needs really good customer support. That's what they want. A proactive listener says, wait a minute. Why do they have to reach out to customer support so often that it's causing them to look for another solution? And so they'll ask that, hey, prospect, you mentioned that you're reaching out to customer support. Every time you reach out to them, they're giving you the runaround and blah, 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 blah. Curious, like, why do you have to reach out to them so often? And many times by asking that type of question, the prospect will say something like, we're trying to achieve X or we're trying to do Y or whatever it is. And that's the real reason that they're looking for. And the only way you're able to find that out as a sales rep is by proactively listening, paying attention to what was not explicitly said by the prospect. That's a very powerful skill set to have, because if you're, if you're doing the demo and you're showing them a feature and you're asking for feedback and they're giving you a surface level response, it's your job to sort of get a little bit more curious. Like, are they telling me exactly what they're feeling, or are they sort of beating around the bush? So that's that's an important skill set.
Yeah, having that, I guess, intense level of curiosity and not taking everything for face value, always digging a bit deeper, like you said, to understand kind of why it's an issue, what the impact is, and if that's a problem they actually want to solve. I get it. Cool. And some good points about pricing there in terms of kind of understanding early and then perhaps showing it later if it's relevant. All right. So some good ground covered. Is there any other stages before we need to look to wrap the demo up? And do we ask for the business? Do they ask us to go ahead? Because I know we've had different guests on and from sales backgrounds that have said there's various different ways to get the deal done. Some say you ask for the sale, others say you don't. Or is there another step more before we even get to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different variations. I like in my course, one of the things I say early on is like, there is no one way of doing things in sales. So if anyone tells you this is the only way of doing it, run. So what I'm saying is one variation. You'll hear me say another variation. So it depends. If you're dealing again with like an enterprise level deal that takes a lot longer to close, maybe 6 months on average, 12 months on average, and you're doing the first demo, don't ask for the business because you probably won't get it in the beginning. There's too many other stakeholders. But if you're dealing with like an SMB and they're the only decision maker and they're the only influencer and everything you show them is exactly what they're looking for, then at the end of the call, ask for the close. And one of the ways you can ask for the close is simply asking, hey, Sam, I showed you asked for X, I showed you Y. Based on what I showed you, do you see yourself using this software? Yes. Okay. So I guess my only question, Sam, is like, what do I need to do to earn your business today? Just ask it. And many times, like, all right, well, I'm ready to sign up right now, right? And sometimes after showing the pricing and the plans, and you stay quiet, the prospect will say, all right, what's next? Right? And then that could be an indicator of interest. So yes, sometimes ask for it. Sometimes don't ask for it. You'll need, if you have, many times you'll have like a prospect that schedules a demo with like 3 or 4 other people within their team, but only that one person was able to make it. If those other people are influencers, maybe it's worth doing a secondary demo or third demo with those people as well before asking for the close.
Yep. Yeah, I like it, and I appreciate if you're running large scale enterprise deals, like you say, there might be other stakeholders. You might need to organize several other meetings along the chain, so it might not always make sense to ask for the business right now. Perhaps the next step is saying, look, we need to get the head of marketing, we need to get the finance director, we need to get the intelligence officer on the next call. So how do we facilitate that? Likewise, if it's a smaller deal, then it might make sense to us for the business right now. Cool. So we've gone through a great process here. Mor, is this the framework to get 50% or plus of your sales demos? Are there any final considerations that we need to?
I mean, there's a lot more, right? Like, I can only say so much within the time that we have, right? Like,
I appreciate that.
So part of all this is also measuring yourself. There's also the small details in between each framework. There's a lot more to this, but that's a lot of it.
Nice, dude. And yeah, by all means, if you've got anything you want to point us listeners to, we can always put that in the show notes at businessgrowth.marketing. So with that, sir, I want to say thanks very much, Mor, for running us through how to close 50% or more of your demos. Been really interesting and useful for myself, and I'm sure everyone tuning in. Do tell us more about how everyone listening or watching can learn from you, how they can connect with you, and the best way to get in touch.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on LinkedIn like more than I'm breathing oxygen. Like, so you can find me on LinkedIn.
I can relate.
Yeah, LinkedIn /IN/Mor Assouline. You probably have my name written down. They won't remember how to spell it. I have a podcast called SaaS Talks from Lead to Close. They're 5 minutes or less an episode. I have a monthly special guest every month. I had Nick Sigelski on. I had Ethan Parker on. I'm going to have a few other people on every month. And then I released the demo course I talked about, From Demo to Close, FDTC. You can find it on demotoclose.com.
Nice one, dude. And like I say, we'll put all those links over in the show notes at businessgrowth.marketing. And with that, I want to thank you once again, Mor. Enjoyed the chat.
Same here, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers, dude. And as always, if you enjoyed today's show, do hit that subscribe button. We interview business leaders each and every week to provide actionable marketing tips to grow your business, grow your sales, grow your revenue. And with that, we should catch you on the next one.